Welcome to our channel, Book by Book. Today, we're getting into a really insightful piece of popular science. David G. Myers' 2022 book, How Do We Know Ourselves? Curiosities and Marvels of the Human Mind.
Yeah, this one's pretty critical, I think, for anyone who's ever wondered, why they do the things they do. Our goal here today at Book by Book is basically to give you the ultimate shortcut. We're going to pull out the main lessons, the core psych concepts, and really importantly, the actionable stuff. The steps Myers suggests, based on, well, decades of psychological science about understanding ourselves, we want to lay it all out for you clearly and with enough depth.
Okay, so let's unpack the book itself a little. Myers wasn't writing some dense academic text here, was he?
No, not at all. The structure's quite clever, actually. It's basically 40 short essays. They're punchy, make it think. It lands right in that sweet spot between, psychology, self-understanding, and popular science. Really accessible.
40 essays, wow. That's quite a collection.
It is, and it feels like looking through different windows onto your own mind. He groups them around three big questions, which kind of guide you through it. First, who am I? That's the individual stuff, the hidden drivers.
Okay.
Then, who are we? Which gets into our social side, relationships. And finally, what in the world connecting our inner workings to, well, the outside world?
That structure sounds really helpful. It leads us right to the main point, doesn't it? The core thesis.
Mm-hmm.
Why does Myers think we need to actively learn about ourselves, especially now?
Well, the core idea is this kind of paradox, isn't it? It's powerful, but also a bit humbling. We generally operate thinking we know ourselves pretty well, like we're transparent to ourselves.
Yeah, I think most people feel that way.
Right. But psychological science, Myers argues, shows again and again that a huge chunk of what drives our thoughts, our feelings, our choices, even our actions, it's hidden, it's automatic. Or it's shaped by social pressures we don't even notice.
That definitely feels relevant today.
Yeah.
With all the digital noise, information overload,
Yeah.
figuring out what's really us versus what's just, external pressure seems crucial.
Exactly. And that's where the power lies in awareness. If you can start to see those hidden influences, those system one automatic drivers, you can shift from just reacting to actually consciously living.
Steering the ship instead of just being pushed by the currents.
That's a great way to put it. Myers uses this quote that kind of sets the stage for the whole book. Although we all know a lot, we don't know what we don't know, even about ourselves. Just acknowledging that gap, that's the starting point for really growing.
Okay, that perfectly sets us up. Let's dive into that first section then. Who am I? Dealing with those deep hidden drivers. Lesson 1 you flagged is confronting the illusion of self-awareness.
Yeah, and what's striking here is just how much of our mental life happens, beneath conscious awareness. Myers really emphasizes how often we're on autopilot, way more than we like to think. And because of that, we often misjudge our own motives, why we make big life decisions.
Which brings us to a really surprising concept he details. Implicit egotism. This needs a bit more unpacking than just the definition, I think. What's the science behind this? This non-rational preference for things that reflect us.
Right, implicit egotism. It's fascinating evidence for how our automatic mind is sort of constantly seeking comfort, seeking self-affirmation out in the world. Myers talks about specific studies showing this weird non-rational pull. For example, they found these correlations between people's first initials and the cities they were slightly more likely to move to, or the jobs they ended up in.
Seriously, like a Louis moving to St. Louis more often.
Something like that, yeah. Or Laura being slightly more drawn to law. Now, obviously, people have rational reasons for these choices, but this implicit preference adds a subtle nudge. It suggests these big decisions are, as Myers puts it, less rational than we imagine.
So it's not about conscious vanity, like thinking your name is great. It's deeper, more automatic. A kind of subconscious resonance affecting huge things like careers or partners. So if I pick my podcast name because I just like the sound, maybe that wasn't purely a strategic choice.
You're getting it. You're seeing that hidden pull. You might list pros and cons for a job, right? But your non-rational self might have already subtly weighted the option that just feels more you, maybe for some arbitrary reason tied to your name or birthday or something. So the practical application here is like a cognitive check. When you face a big decision, job, move, relationship, you got to pause. You have to ask yourself, really ask, am I leaning this way because the logic stacks up or because it just feels comfortable, maybe echoing some random part of my identity? You're trying to separate the hidden nudge from the clear-eyed assessment.
This ties right into that classic psychology analogy. Myers uses the mind as an iceberg. Our conscious thoughts are just that little bit sticking out of the water.
Exactly. And that massive hidden part underneath, that's all the automatic stuff. Implicit egotism, biases we don't know we have, ingrained habits, all steering the iceberg without the captain on deck being fully aware. Just knowing that underwater part exists is step one to gaining more control. Our inner story isn't the full story.
Knowing that leads straight into lesson 2, which is about managing the limited capacity of that conscious tip,
Yeah.
the narrow gateway of attention. Our brain filters things aggressively.
It absolutely has to. Think about it. Billions of bits of sensory info hitting us every second.
Yeah.
Our conscious mind can only handle, what, maybe 40 or 50 bits, something tiny like that. Filtering saves us from overload. But Meyer's key point is crucial. What we filter out shapes our reality just as much as what we focus on. Our whole experience is defined by where we point that tiny spotlight.
And the result is we often miss focus. We miss the gorilla walking through the basketball game in those famous experiments. Or we just misread situations because our attention is like locked onto the wrong thing.
Yeah, think of attention like a camera aperture, right? It's a really narrow field of view, but where it points, it gathers a lot of light intensely. Everything else stays dark.
Okay.
So if you point that intense beam at your phone screen for hours, well, your world becomes that feed, the subtleties in the room, maybe the look on someone's face, even how your own body feels, all that stays in the dark. You're basically starving other parts of your awareness.
That really highlights the cost of distraction, doesn't it? If that high-intensity light is always on fragmented digital stuff, we're literally training ourselves not to see the slower, more important internal landscape.
So the way back, the intervention, is to consciously reclaim control of that aperture. Practice mindful attention, not in some vague, mystical way, but practically. Like, pause before you instinctively check your phone. Ask yourself, what feeling made me want to do that? Boredom? Anxiety? Just that pause, that noticing, shifts the light from the external trigger back to your internal state. That's how you interrupt the iceberg's autopilot.
Okay, so this limited attention forces our brain to rely on speed, on shortcuts. Which brings us nicely to the next big idea, dual processing, and specifically lesson 3, the perils and power of intuition.
Right. Myers uses this well-known framework, you've probably heard of it, System 1 and System 2 thinking. System 1 is the fast, automatic, intuitive stuff, happens below conscious radar. System 2 is the slow, deliberate, rational thinking. We need System 1, obviously. Can't drive a car or read facial expressions without it.
But it's efficient, so. What are the perils? What's the catch?
The catch is that we're automatic meaning makers. This is a really key concept Myers explores. Because System 1 makes snap judgments unconsciously, our System 2 often jumps in afterwards to create a logical-sounding story explaining that judgment. We build a narrative to make sense of it. It's called post hoc rationalization. We trick ourselves into thinking the reason came first.
So the I knew it all along feeling, hindsight bias isn't just a funny quirk. It's our brain basically writing a history of conscious decision-making that didn't actually happen that way.
You got it. If you take a risky bet and it works out, your System 2 instantly crafts a story about your brilliant foresight, conveniently forgetting how anxious you actually were beforehand. The peril is, if you don't catch yourself doing this, you don't learn properly from experience. You mistake luck or just an automatic impulse for skill.
That makes the analogy of intuition as autopilot really land. It gets you there fast, usually. But if the initial programming, the underlying assumptions or biases are flawed, it can steer you way off course without you realizing until much later.
Absolutely. So the actionable check here is vital whenever you feel a really strong gut reaction, certainty, distrust, sudden confidence. Say you meet someone and instantly dislike them. System 1 just fired. You have to engage System 2. Before acting on that feeling, force yourself to ask, is this based on something they actually did or said? Or is it maybe hitting some old prejudice, some stereotype, some fear I carry? That reflective pause is the only way to stop the autopilot from reacting based on potentially faulty wiring.
And Myers offers a way to combat this tendency towards automaticity, right? Which is lesson 6, embracing wonder and curiosity. This sounds like deliberately stepping off the automatic meaning-making treadmill.
It really is. It's like a formal invitation. Myers extends. Adopt a stance of genuine curiosity towards your own mind and towards your interactions. Resist that urge to immediately judge or explain everything away. If we accept we're automatic meaning makers, then curiosity is the tool to gently take apart those instant narratives and ask, okay, but what else might be going on here?
He suggests finding insight in small, everyday paradoxes. That seems like a practical way to force System 2 online. Can you give an example? What's a simple paradox that reveals something bigger?
Okay, think about mishearing song lyrics. mondegreens,
Mhm.
your automatic system one hears some muffled sound and instantly plugs in the closest familiar phrase it knows, often hilariously wrong.
Right, like, excuse me while I kiss this guy instead of kiss this guy.
Exactly. Or think about why we fear things disproportionately. Like being terrified of flying, which is statistically super safe, but hopping in a car without a second thought, even though driving it is far riskier. These little mismatches between reality and how our mind automatically interprets it, they expose the powerful, sometimes flawed assumptions baked into our system one.
So the goal is to stop sleepwalking through life,
Hmm.
like hiking a beautiful trail, but being so focused on just putting one foot in front of the other on autopilot that you miss the incredible view entirely. Curiosity wakes you up. It shifts you from just being efficient to actually paying attention.
And it needs structure to become a habit. Myers suggests a curiosity journal. Not just logging what happened, but specifically noting the little weird things, the unexpected feelings, the interpretations that surprised you during the day. Then you ask, why did I react so strongly to that comment? Or why did I feel suddenly defensive then? You're digging into those automatic patterns you usually miss. It's about shifting your default from reacting to observing.
This feels like a natural pivot point because understanding ourselves, that who am I, really finds its full meaning when we consider our social context to who are we. Yeah. Let's shift focus now to relationships and lesson 4, humility as the key to connection.
Yeah, the book definitely shifts gears here. It moves from just tackling our internal biases to looking at how those biases damage our relationships and group interactions. Understanding our own flawed automatic self is step one towards having healthier connections, towards reducing that ego static that messes up collaboration.
We often think of humility as, I don't know, being meek or putting yourself down, but
Yeah.
Myers talks about the science of humility, which sounds quite different.
It's very different. Scientifically, humility isn't about weakness at all. It's about having an accurate self-assessment, knowing your strengths, yes, but also knowing your limitations. And crucially, it's about having the intellectual honesty, the willingness to genuinely admit you might be wrong. Myers points to research showing that people and teams who score higher on humility measures actually make fewer mistakes on complex problems. Why? Because they're open to feedback, to correction, to new data. Stubbornly refusing to admit you might be wrong literally shuts down learning.
Which makes that analogy so good. Humility is like a soft lens on a camera.
It's a perfect analogy. The soft lens cuts down the glare, the ego, the defensiveness, the self-importance, and lets more of the actual scene, the reality of the situation, or the other person's perspective come into focus. Without it, all you see is your own reflection, your own biases bouncing back.
So how do we actually use this, especially in tricky situations like work meetings or arguments where egos flare up easily? What's a practical way to put on that soft lens?
The trick is often about signaling it up front, verbally. Instead of marching into a tough conversation with your flags planted, ready for battle, you start with a bit of vulnerability. Try opening phrases like, okay, help me understand your perspective first, or I might be missing something here, but, or what's the data supporting that view? It immediately lowers the temperature, invites collaboration instead of confrontation, and forces everyone, including yourself, into a more reflective System 2 mode.
That focus on group dynamics leads directly into what feels like a very timely, maybe even urgent lesson. Lesson 5, the hidden trap of polarization. Myers argues this isn't just politics, it's deep psychology.
It is, and it's super relevant in our online world. The way we divide ourselves is incredibly efficient, psychologically speaking. It taps into our basic need for belonging, our tendency to seek out information that confirms what we already believe, confirmation bias, and of course, the social echo chambers we all find ourselves in. We naturally gravitate towards agreement because it feels comfortable.
And what happens when we find that comfort? When like-minded people get together, Myers talks about this really powerful and frankly worrying group discussion effect.
Yeah, this is key. The effect is that when people who already agree on something discuss it, their views don't usually moderate or find common ground. Instead, their attitudes often become more extreme.
More extreme, not just confirms.
More extreme. Each person acts as social proof for the others, validating the rightness of their shared view and bit by bit, validating slightly more extreme interpretations. The group's subtle biases compound each other, pushing the collective attitude further out on a limb.
Wow, so the tuning fork analogy Myers uses really captures that runaway effect.
It does. Strike one tuning fork, hold another of the same frequency nearby, and the second one starts vibrating too, amplifying the sound. That's polarization. Homogeneous groups amplify. Diversity, different viewpoints, introduces friction, a counter frequency that stops the runaway vibration. It takes more effort to deal with diversity, but it prevents that dangerous amplification.
Okay, so for listeners feeling that heat daily, the urge to fight back online, to dismiss anyone who disagrees, what's the practical strategy Myers offers to stop ourselves from becoming just another tuning fork?
It requires applying that reflective system to pause, but socially. Self-interrogation. When you feel that anger or defensiveness flare up online or in a discussion, you have to stop and ask yourself, what exactly am I assuming about this person's motives or intelligence? And then the really hard part. Could their point have any merit, even a tiny grain of truth, even if I disagree with their overall conclusion? That little moment of forced perspective taking, however brief, is how you resist just automatically amplifying your side's bias. It's how you build bridges, or at least stop digging the ditch deeper.
We've covered a lot of ground here, really taking a comprehensive tour through Myers' insights from the hidden depths of the individual self, the iceberg, to the amplifying effects in groups, the tuning forks. Myers doesn't just leave us with the problems, though. He gives us concrete ways to live more consciously. Let's pull it all together now with the 10 practical tips for conscious living he offers.
Right. These are the real takeaways, the blueprint for putting this stuff into practice, moving from just knowing it to actually doing it.
Okay, starting with the number 1, interrupt autopilot. Basically, notice when you're running on instinct, quick emotions, snap judgments, and deliberately pause before you act or speak.
That's the absolute foundation. Just pause.
2, consciously choose your lens. Practice mindful attention. Take a few minutes each day just to notice what you see, hear, feel without judgment. Strengthen that attention muscle.
Yeah, take back control of that narrow spotlight. Focus it intentionally.
3, scrutinize hindsight bias. When you catch yourself thinking, I knew it all along, challenge yourself. Ask, what evidence did I actually not have before things turned out this way?
Yeah, fight that tendency to rewrite history in your head.
4, introduce the soft lens. Be intentional about humility in conversations, especially tricky ones. Use those phrases, what am I missing? Help me understand. I could be wrong here.
Cuts the ego glare, lets reality in.
5, engage tension. Actively seek out different perspectives. Read things. Listen to people who challenge your assumptions. Step outside your usual echo chamber.
Introduce that counter-frequency. Stop the amplification.
6, document paradox. Keep that curiosity journal. Note one small oddity, one unexpected reaction, one puzzling feeling each day, then reflect. Why?
Moves you from sleepwalking past the view to actually seeing it.
7, force disruption. Notice when you're stuck in autopilot routines, living the same day over and over. Consciously break the pattern. Take a different route. Try something new. Just shake it up.
Yeah, the iceberg needs nudges to change course.
8, question the taken for granted. Build in moments of wonder. Look at everyday things, habits, beliefs you just accept, and ask basic questions. Why is it like this? What if it wasn't?
Keep that beginner's mind, that sense of inquiry.
9, embrace complexity. This is a big one. Accept the core message. You don't fully know yourself, and you never will completely. Let go of needing one simple story. You're contradictory, complex. That's human.
The search is the destination, in a way.
And finally, 10, rely on cognitive interventions, not miracles. Myers is clear. Self-understanding isn't magic, it's work. Use the psychological tools from the book consistently. It's about applying the science, not just hoping for an epiphany.
That list really gives you a roadmap. But if we had to boil down all that depth, maybe synthesize the absolute top 5 core lessons from the book.
Yeah, let's do that. Give us the sharpest takeaway.
Okay, first, we are way less self-aware than we think. So job number 1 is always interrupting that hidden autopilot, the implicit egotism, the biases before they dictate our path.
Got it. 2,
Attention is incredibly limited. That narrow lens shapes everything. So we have to be mindful, really conscious about where we point it, knowing that what we ignore is just as important as what we focus on.
right.
Third, intuition system 1 is fast and useful, but prone to errors and biases. We must regularly use our slower, reflective system 2 thinking to check our gut feelings, question our own narratives, and fight that I knew it all along illusion.
Okay.
Fourth lesson, humility and curiosity aren't just virtues, they're practical skills for connection. Accurately knowing our limits and being genuinely willing to be wrong reduces bias and builds bridges with others.
And the 5th key lesson.
Group dynamics, especially online, naturally pull towards amplification and polarization. The big challenge for us now is to spot that group discussion effect happening and consciously choose to seek understanding and counter evidence instead of just adding to the noise.
That's a powerful summary.
This book, How Do We Know Ourselves? It really is a fantastic guide. It gives you both a mirror to see your own workings, maybe flaws and all, and also a kind of a lantern to navigate past them. Myers isn't promising, the secret to life.
No magic bullet.
Exactly. But he gives us scientific tools, a lens for what needs to be a lifelong process. Knowing ourselves isn't a place you arrive at. It's something you do every day, starting the moment you question your own automatic thoughts.
So the message is really to embrace that inner complexity, maybe even the internal drama. Knowing that you're this automatic meaning maker can actually be freeing. It lets you step back, observe yourself, your reactions with more wonder.
Yeah.
Like shifting from being just an actor on stage to also being the curious director watching the play unfold.
That's a great way to think about it. And there's this final thought from the book, a quote that really nails where we waste our attention versus where we could better apply it for real growth. He says, "A bad hair day hardly matters, and if we wear yesterday's clothes again today, few will notice. Of those, fewer still will remember."
That hits home. We spend so much mental energy, that limited attention we talked about, worrying about superficial stuff that honestly doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, or for our own development. The real challenge Myers leaves us with is redirecting that precious energy inwards towards understanding ourselves better and improving how we connect with others.
That really is the essential takeaway, I think.
Well, thank you for joining us on this detailed book summary of David G. Myers' How Do We Know Ourselves? It's been genuinely fascinating to unpack these lessons and think about how practical they really are.
Absolutely. The value of just asking these questions, of becoming more aware, it's huge. And this book gives such a solid, science-backed way to approach that journey.
If you found this summary useful, if it helped you grasp Myers' ideas and how you might use them, we'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe to Book by Book for more helpful summaries like this one.
Yeah, and please do share it with anyone you think might find it interesting. And give it a like.
It honestly does motivate us to keep digging into these books and bringing you the best summaries we can.
Thanks so much for listening.
We'll see you next time on Book by Book.